morning, everyone. Aloha. I'd like to thank all of you for attending the July monthly service here at our church. Thank you all for your kind and sincere offers. I'm sure God the Parent and Lord Sama is really happy to see you all here to have performed the service with joy and in high spirits. Today's sermon will be delivered by our head minister's designate. He has been elected or appointed as the next head minister of Road Church, which I'll be stepping down in May of next year. Everyone, please welcome Louis Nakao. First button on the bottom. Thank you all for taking the time to attend the July monthly service here at Pearl Church. I would like to ask for your patience and attention as I've been asked to give this month's sermon. I was asked to talk about why I have faith in Tenrikyo. And while I was born into the faith, I believe that I realized it was the moments when I faced hardships that faith was important to me. And that was when, I think those moments happened when I married Mimi in Japan when Olivia was born. I did not look back at these hardships begrudgingly or with resentment, but rather I just remember them as treasured memories. And it was when I had truly learned to lean on God the Parent and help me grow spiritually. I'll start at the moment when Mimi was pregnant. She took several pregnancy tests before we decided to tell one of our teachers what to do next. We decided to tell Mimi Sensei, Kei Sensei. She was close to Mimi. When we approached her, we moved into a classroom for privacy and told her first that we wanted to get married. She then started explaining how it was going to be very difficult to get married because we needed the approval from someone important. And just to as a side note on the script, but I think she kind of knew about our situation prior because we were dating, and that the situation being that Mimi's church did not want her to, leave her church because I'm gonna marry. I might marry her. But so that's why she kind of went on about the whole getting approval situation, explanation. But then we told her that Mimi was pregnant, and she immediately said that we don't have to worry about getting approval for marriage. So then she explained that we needed to tell our head ministers and then also our parents. That was when things started getting difficult. It seemed like a cultural understanding for people in Japan to actively be disappointed about having a child before marriage. To keep things, the details limited, there were issues with the idea that Mimi would become part of our church and not the church she was initially a part of. I also believe that while having a child prior to marriage is not necessarily a good thing. It was not as severe of an issue that everyone else seemed to make it to be. As part of informing the Dengen Kaito-san, I was told to make a kokoro sadane, firm resolutions to God, a promise to God in marriage. I told my parents of this, and we decided to perform. I decided that I would perform Kamina Nagashi, practice Otepuri, and wipe the Tengen sanctuary halls every day. My Kamina Nagashi was performed in front of the 7-Eleven close to Tengen. Since I did it daily, people started to notice and recognize me by the writing on my hapiko. I also practiced Otepuri after the evening service and then wiped the floors around the Tengen Shinden. When I first practiced Otepuri the first time, when I got to Psalm 9, verse 2, where it says, "Against any hardship I will protect you, so lean closely on the mind of God." So just to kind of demonstrate, because I think the movements are important. Suju Tenrikyo ni shite ano kami no koto ni otarezu. Okay, so you kind of cross your arms and lean back like this. Kind of as the representation of leaning on God. It kind of, to me, it reminds me of like the trust ball, right? You cross your arms and you fall and kind of let someone catch you. When I got to that verse, I cried pitifully because, excuse me, because I knew this was all I could do, because I felt helpless. For the first time in my life, I had no control over the outcome of my life due to the many uncertainties that I was facing at that time. I was not certain about that Mimi's pregnancy would go well, and that we would even have a wedding ceremony in Japan, and how I was even going to get a visa for Mimi, because Mimi is from Laos. There were all sorts of errands I needed to go to do and forms I had to fill out. With responsibilities and difficulties with people around me, I was getting stressed out. Oksan, meaning the Tengen Kaicho's wife and minister's wife, would regularly remind me that my face was frowning again because I was constantly worried. I also felt like I was about to, as kids like to say, crash out. Amy and I had to endure a lot, but we relied on each other for moral support. I remember once I had to call a government agency, I forgot which one, the police or the city hall, but with my limited Japanese, I didn't understand one of the words that was said. I said in Japanese, "I'm sorry, I'm not very good at Japanese." The person immediately responded saying, "Well, then have someone that knows how to speak Japanese help you then." I thought that was rude but fair, and I panicked. However, while we're talking, I quickly looked up the word she said in another device's dictionary, and I was able to resume the conversation. Also, around this time, Uncle Eleanor came to visit me. I was relieved because I could finally talk about my troubles to someone in English and have an excuse to go out. During this visit, we walked to Marugame Udon. They have one in Waikiki now. Mimi and I's favorite restaurant, and I talked about our situation. But I was so worried about my life, I didn't realize he was making a joke when he said, "At least you know you're not shooting blanks." It's so funny now, but I was so seriously worried that it went over my head without even a chuckle. I was blessed with patience and relatively good luck, and we got married on paper at the Tendy City Hall, and then Mimi moved into Tengen. We had checkups for Mimi's pregnancy at the Ikoinoe Hospital. And at one visit, she was required to stay at the hospital for a few weeks to ensure that she did not give birth to Olivia prematurely. I recall a difficult but funny moment while Mimi was in the hospital. She called me on the phone asking me to buy peaches. We both knew peaches were very expensive and we barely had any money. At the time, I was upset she would request such a thing, and what annoyed me at the time was that you had to buy two in one pack. I think it was like 800 yen or something. But, that was like a lot of money for us. Um, I later joked that maybe we should name our child Momo, which means peaches in Japanese. As I mentioned earlier, in an incident like the one with the peaches is a treasured memory because it reminds me of a sharp contrast between then and now. Before, Mimi and I had little money between each other. We were jobless, but now we're gainfully employed with 4 children. So, excuse me. And we're surrounded by family. We can easily buy beaches without a second thought. When Olivia was born, it seemed like our life lit up after what seemed like the darkest time of our life. I just remember seeing Olivia smile and laugh. Seeing Olivia smile brought us so much joy. We were also blessed with a wedding ceremony at Tenrikyo, at a reception party that the overseas department planned and held for us. Things started coming together, such as Mimi's green card visa, which required a visit to Tokyo to have a visa interview, and obtaining Olivia's citizenship papers and passport. As I went through this period in my life, I learned that God the Parent put me on this path to help me build this foundation of trust with our parent church Tenrikyo, the trust between Mimi and I, and my faith, the teachings. Without those hardships, I may not have built a strong and reliable foundation in those very important aspects of my life. And as hard as it may have been, what helped me the most was knowing that I had you all waiting for me at home in Hawaii. So while I have my worries about becoming the next head minister and anticipate some hardships ahead, I know that we are all waiting, that you are all waiting for me when it happens. Thank you for your continued support, and I'll do my best as the next Pro Church head minister. Thank you for listening.